I want to speak to clients and non-clients about how to select colleges. And I put it in two stages. One, select colleges for applying to, and then select for real once you hear back and have a narrower scope and more knowledge. So let's start with the application part. It makes sense to be broad in your selection for applications, okay? The worst they can say is no. Applying to lots of schools and hearing lots of no's, but giving yourself the chance to hear yes from a few reach schools that you otherwise wouldn't put an application into, it's worthwhile. It's a $70 check. That's the only difference, and then maybe one extra hour working on the application itself. A few colleges have some specialty essays that might require a couple extra hours for each new essay. On the whole, though, the work you put in the common application is repeatable so that adding a lot of colleges doesn't come at much expense. Now, if you have a guidance person saying, well, we typically only want students applying to 6 colleges, I'd like you to retort that. I have 11 colleges that I've researched, any one of which I could see myself being very comfortable at for the next 4 years, and I want to apply to all 11. Plus, I want to have 2 backups. 11 colleges and 2 backups is very realistic. Okay, it might be above the average for the school, but it's your future. You're not hoarding acceptances if you do this. Once you've gotten in, let's say on an early round, to multiple colleges, then you're down to just those few. At that point, you withdraw your letters to the ones you know don't make the grade in your mind. That even if they came through, at that point you wouldn't go there. But until that happens, having 13, 14 colleges in play is fine. Now, the way that modern admissions work is that there is kind of a randomness so that you don't know with your 3.5 GPA and 1950 SAT score what to exactly expect. If it were totally numbers driven, you could say, all right, these numbers automatically get me into these schools and knock me out of those schools. Then you could be honed into like 2 or 3 colleges and decide among financial offers or some later visits. But because there's a randomness, having a dozen or more colleges in play totally makes sense. My prescription is not to be eliminating based on the content of the college. Be inclusive based on one thing that you would really like to take advantage of. So that may put you in play for 20 or 30 possible colleges, and then you may need some guidance or do the work yourself for researching the realisticness of getting in the first place. Our strategy for most applicants is to have 6 core colleges. Core means you are looking at pretty competitive. Your odds of getting admitted are only between 25 and 50% to any one of them. But notice, if you apply to 6 of them, a 25% chance of admission probably still results in at least one of those cores saying yes, maybe multiples saying yes. So it's a competitive college that you still don't even have a 50% chance of getting it, 25 to 50%. But by doing 6 of them, you've got a good chance of getting into 1 or 2. I also want you to apply to 2 backup schools, with this exception. The people who don't have to apply to backups, they're the ones who are willing to take a whole year off. Okay, you get into none of your cores and then don't want to settle for something that's less than what you were looking at. Okay, take a year off, that's a very good option. But otherwise, if you want to be in college next year, then 2 backups, not just 1. And you take your backups seriously. You apply to them with the same fervor that you do your reach schools. Because we don't want the colleges that are a backup to you to feel like they're a backup because they have plenty of reason then to deny you. that we don't want you in the first place. It actually hurts their matriculation rate when they admit a lot of people who then say no. They would rather not admit you. So you've got to have a good reason, present it seriously, even to the college that's a backup. What's a backup? In my mind, a school that you have a 90% chance or more of getting into. And again, 2 of them, because anything could happen, the odds of both backups saying no is about 2% or less. Now, how many reach schools? I talked about 2 backups, 6 core schools. Reach for as many as you have the willingness to write those $70 checks to, and that you're sincere about possibly attending. So the number is potentially high. I had one young man apply to 48 colleges. All right, I think that's not worth striving for. But he was actually very diligent about writing and figuring out what those 48 colleges are about. He had researched probably 75 and gotten them down to a mere 48. Again, I think 12 to 15 is probably a good number. Now let's talk about early decision, because early decision could allow you to apply to just 1. And there's a nice benefit in addition to 1 and done. It's with a good application to that 1 early decision school, you're more likely to get in than if you wait for the regular. Early decision, not early action, I'll get to that. Early decision allows students to not only hear early, but to get love in return for them deciding, I will go to you, I can't go elsewhere if you say yes to me. Early decision is really a contract between a 17-year-old kid and the college stating, if you accept me, I am obligated to go there. I have to withdraw my applications to other schools if I'm accepted. So it's a serious commitment, but if a 17-year-old is mature enough to say, I'm happy to be spending 4 years there, and I'm not going to look back at the other school that might have come through for me had I waited for the regular decision round. I'm happy. That and the willingness to potentially not have the best scholarship offer is a good recipe for applying early, because with it, students are probably seeing a 100-point SAT advantage. There's been some research showing it's even higher than that. Conservatively, 90 to 120 points SAT advantage by saying, Davidson, I want to be at your school and only your school. I'm dying for Davidson. I will go early decision. And by comparison to that same student, same credentials, doing a January application instead of the November application, that same student is probably seeing an advantage in the eyes of the Davidson Admissions Committee of about 120 points. You'd have to be 190, 100, 110 points better in the regular round than you do in the early round. So, if a student doesn't have to shop financially, and a student is okay to say, I'd love to be there for 4 years, no regrets that other schools I didn't even apply to, it makes a lot of sense. The shop financially is that, look, with only 1 school, a financial aid package is not going to be as good as picking from among 4 or 5 financial aid packages. And that 1 early decision school is not as eager to give a huge amount of money in merit or need-based aid because you're dying for Davidson. You've already said that. That's your early decision. So it's not like schools are trying to knife middle-class families and make them pay beyond what they can. But by the regular decision, when you got multiple offers, some of them are going to be better tuition for your parents, some of them aren't. There's even the possibility in the regular decision round of negotiating. I have 4 offers. You say it's Trinity. You've given me only $10,000 off. This other school gave me and my parents $30,000 off tuition for the next 4 years. And though Trinity, I like you a little better, I've got to ask you to come closer to what those other schools are offering, or I have to say no. It's something that's done, at times successfully, at times not. So I'm not a negotiator, but a lot of your parents are, and it makes sense, but you can only do that in the regular decision round. The number of applications that you can make is truly unlimited. And there's a scary question that some colleges put in their application. Where else are you applying to? And I think the answer for the early decision school is nowhere. Okay? For the regular decision school, give them 2, 3, or 4 schools and say, at this time, these schools, and make them close in terms of rankings and similar in terms of size. Let me talk about how to get that huge number of schools. There's 330 competitive 4-year colleges out there, down to a 12 to 15 number. And the best way is for the students who have an idea of what they want to major in or a career that they want to go into. When you've got that level of specificity at age 17, you're probably blessed. Some kids know, I want nursing, I want geological sciences, I want environmental sciences. Then you've got schools that specialize in that, and schools that may not specialize but at least have a decent enough program that should be on your list. Now, if you love a school that doesn't have the program that you career-wise want, still, you might want to go there if they have leave term opportunities, a semester or a whole year where credits transfer from another college that you can learn in that area. So you still have a big, broad list to choose from. Now, if you have no passion for a career at this point, that's fine. Your list is even broader. And that's where I suggest narrowing down based on size of school and geography. I have a matrix that I encourage students to use. You'll see it on the screen later. It corresponds large, medium, and small colleges against urban, rural, and suburban for environments. I think those are pretty significant. Now, to some kids, they say, I don't care how many kids are around me. I don't care what's around me. But most people do have a sense of urban, that's for me. Rural, I'm out with cows and just a couple restaurants outside of campus, that's not for me. Okay, you've got this honing that you've already done. Size of school. I find that the large schools initially scare people off, but they shouldn't, because I have never had a student who's reported, I want to transfer because the school I attended is too big. Now, I have had the opposite way. Schools, I started a school with only 3,000 students, and it's just too small. It's not much bigger than my high school. I wanted bigger. The reason why large, I think, stays appealing, even for somebody with small school sentiments, is that you make your school as small as you want because you're going to be choosing within this big campus a certain area of study, which often is just one building for a lot of your courses. Certain friends, you can't have 15,000 friends. You have at most 15. And most people, it's like 4, 5, or 6. So even within giant University of Michigan, you and your 5 friends can be tight. And even if you're not sharing the same classes, you can be in the same dining halls, you can still be in the same clubs, and you end up doing the same things on weekends. Your dorm might be a little further apart than the other. Take a shuttle, it still works fine. So, I do encourage campus visits to get a sense of whether small, medium, or large is appropriate. And the rural, urban, suburban may be influential in those visits too. I don't encourage a lot of those visits though. I think having 4 or 5 as a sophomore or early in the junior year is sufficient. Late in the junior year, if it doesn't crowd your schedule, I think that makes sense too. Junior spring is usually very crowded. And my favorite time, if you're waiting till junior year to make visits, would be February break or March break or April break. Okay? And I say February, especially if you're eyeing schools in cold climates. I think I want to go to Colby in Maine. Let's see if a day in Maine is okay in February so I know I can spend 4 years or 4 winters comfortably up there. Do not visit colleges during their breaks and expect it to be realistic. You'll see a pretty campus, but you won't see students and activity and professors. So it does need to be a visit that's honed for a normal college time. First week of college in a semester is not normal either. Students are almost not carrying books. They're very cavalier about classes because they haven't even chosen them yet. I'd rather you avoid finals time too. That week or 10 days right before finals, a lot of clubs don't meet. A lot of athletics are over. Kids might be overly stressed. It's not the normal situation. So you may have like a 10-week window each semester that is mutually good for a visit. Summer is a lousy semester to visit, even for those colleges that have regular classes. A few of them do. My alma mater does, but it's fake. It's a less workload, far less stress situation. Even if they're in 4-credit courses for the summer, students are generally happier. They're wearing skimpier clothing. They are with far less stress than in regular times. So it's not a realistic time for a visit. If you haven't visited all the colleges that you're applying to, it's okay. You can still make a very credible application. And our hints, it's something that I can't do in this free seminar. We do this when people are tied in with consultants. But we have enough tools to make you look very credible as an eager candidate, even if you have never visited the campus. Once you get accepted to multiple campuses, that's the time to visit every one of them. Every one of them still in contention anyway. You want to then maybe make a full day-and-a-half visit. That's where you stay over for a night. Crash on some upperclassman's couch, even floor space. Don't go to their assigned housing. It's too sterile. It's too fake. See what's going on in a dorm. I happen to like a Thursday into Friday visit. You can really assess on a Thursday night, is this party central or do kids get down to business? On Fridays, are there classes? Do kids take it seriously? Do they take it so seriously that they're now fretful for not even having a weekend? And if you then do want to stay for a Friday night really fun activity, you're still on campus, probably not missing anything. So I like those, but notice I like them senior spring. Okay, at that point, you've gotten your acceptances, your high school work isn't as pressing anyway, and you can realistically assess whether you will be an apt fit for the next 4 years. I hope this has been helpful. I look forward to helping any of you further if you need the detail aspects of school by school, crafting essays, making those resumes better, and maybe even helping yourself to better recommendations. My staff does this, but this I hope has been helpful even without going any further. Thanks.